We actually named our own species Homo sapiens, which literally translates to wise human.
Right, the wise humans.
Yeah, wise humans. But honestly, you look at the landscape of the world today and you really have to wonder if we completely misnamed ourselves.
I mean, it's a fair question.
Because we're sitting on more data, more research, and, more real-time information than any generation in the history of the planet. And yet we are constantly teetering on the edge of self-destruction.
Oh, absolutely.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are jumping into Yuval Noah Harari's book, Nexus, A Brief History of Information Networks from the Stone Age to AI. And our mission today is really just to confront this glaring paradox head-on.
Yeah, because for, 100,000 years, we've been aggressively accumulating power?
Exactly. But we seem completely incapable of accumulating the wisdom required to actually use that power safely.
Okay.
Let's unpack this. Why do we feel so unwise?
Well, historically, we've had a really convenient excuse for this, right? We've always blamed our internal psychology.
Like individual flaws.
Exactly. If you look at ancient cautionary tales, the failure point is almost always an individual's hubris. Take the Greek myth of Phaethon, for example.
Oh, right, the sun chariot.
Yeah, so he discovers his dad is Helios, the sun god, and he basically demands to drive the sun chariot to prove his divine bloodline. Helios warns him, mortal minds can't handle these horses, but Phaethon forces the issue anyway.
And it does not go well.
Not at all. He takes the reins, totally panics, veers off course, and scorches the earth. Zeus literally has to kill him with a lightning bolt just to stop the entire world from incinerating.
Wow. Or you jump thousands of years forward to Goethe's poem, The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
Oh yeah, the magic broom.
Right, so an old wizard leaves his apprentice behind with some mundane chore like fetching water. The apprentice thinks he's super clever, so he casts a spell on a broom to do the heavy lifting.
But he doesn't know how to stop it.
Exactly. He lacks the wisdom to control the spell. So the room starts flooding, panic sets in, and he just hacks the broom in half with an axe.
Which is a terrible idea.
The worst idea. Because suddenly he has two autonomous brooms flooding the workshop. But, the underlying message is the same, right? Individual greed and laziness lead to catastrophe when you get tools you don't understand.
And those myths are so deeply embedded in our culture. But Harari's analysis argues they fundamentally misdiagnose our modern problem.
How so?
Because they put the blame on individual psychology. Like, give one person a magic broom or a divine chariot, and they'll just mess it up. But human power in the real world is almost never individual.
That's true. A single person didn't split the atom in their basement.
Exactly. A single person didn't engineer the internet either. Our immense power is the direct result of large-scale cooperation. So the threat we face isn't an individual psychology problem at all. It is a network problem.
Oh, wow. Okay, which completely shifts how we have to look at the mechanisms holding our society together.
Yeah.
Because the glue of those massive human networks is information.
Yes, information.
Yes.
We use it to coordinate millions of strangers.
But if information is the glue, we run into a really disturbing historical reality here. Those large networks haven't always required factual truths to maintain order.
No, not at all.
Sometimes the most efficient glue is a fiction, or even a mass delusion. Like you look at totalitarian regimes like Stalinism. They function as these incredibly powerful, highly organized human networks, but they were glued together by brutal, state-sponsored fictions.
And a shared delusion can actually bind a network tighter than a complex truth can.
Because the truth is messy.
Right. A harsh, nuanced truth invites debate. It causes fragmentation. But a simple, manufactured fiction, especially one that gives you a clear enemy, it demands total loyalty. It coordinates behavior ruthlessly. Stalin won his war, the network held together, not despite the delusions, but because of them.
That reality flies directly in the face of the ideology that totally dominates our current tech era. We operate under what the text calls the naive view of information.
Oh, the Silicon Valley mindset.
Exactly. You see this everywhere in the manifestos of tech founders and search engine mission statements. It's this core belief that gathering more information inevitably leads to the truth.
And that the truth inevitably leads to a wiser, more powerful society.
Right. Under this worldview, bad things like a disease outbreak or a prejudiced policy, they only happen because there's a localized lack of data. If we just flood the zone with more information, transparency will naturally cure the disease.
What's fascinating here is that the naive view isn't entirely wrong. In specific, highly controlled domains, it has actually produced absolute miracles.
Like in medicine.
Yes, the book actually brings back Goethe to prove this point. But instead of analyzing his poetry, it looks at his deeply tragic family life.
This part was wild to read.
It really is. So Goethe was born in the mid-18th century, the eldest of 7 children. Out of those 7 kids, only he and one sister even survived past the age of 7.
That's so grim.
And then later, Goethe himself had 5 children. 4 of them died within weeks of birth.
Losing 4 out of 5 infants is just unfathomable today. And the text points out it wasn't just, like, bad luck.
No, it was almost certainly rhesus disease, which is a blood type incompatibility between the mother and the fetus. And back then, in Germany, the broader child mortality rate hovered around 50%.
Half of all kids.
It's half. But fast forward to today, and global child mortality past age 15 is over 95%. In Germany, it's 99.5%.
That's incredible.
Right. And we didn't evolve better immune systems. What changed was the aggressive gathering, organization, and sharing of medical information across global networks.
So we mapped the pathogens, categorized blood types, and shared it everywhere.
Exactly. In the realm of biology and medicine, the naive view absolutely delivered. Flooding the network with accurate data literally cured a horror that had plagued humanity for millennia.
So wait. If the naive view gave us modern medicine and saved millions of kids, why is the author calling it naive? I mean, it sounds like a proven, scalable model that totally works.
Well, it is a proven model for solving technical puzzles, but it doesn't work for governing a global society.
I see where this is going. It's like comparing our information networks to a biological nervous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
Information acts as the electrical impulses traveling through the nerves.
And that's a great analogy.
If the brain is healthy and coordinated, sending more electrical impulses allows the body to perform complex, life-saving surgery. But if the brain is having a seizure, flooding the nervous system with more electrical impulses doesn't magically coordinate the muscles.
No, it just amplifies the convulsions.
Exactly, you just crash harder.
That captures the dynamic perfectly. Because we have successfully flooded the global nervous system with data, we walk around with more information than the Library of Alexandria right in our pockets.
Yeah, instant communication with billions of nodes.
Yet, with all those electrical impulses firing, the global brain is convulsing. We have mountains of peer-reviewed data on ecological collapse, but we just continue polluting rivers and driving species to extinction.
We have infinite data on nuclear fallout, yet we're stockpiling doomsday weapons.
Exactly. The data itself possesses no inherent wisdom. It doesn't force the human system to act rationally.
And the ultimate stress test for this whole systemic failure is our current race to build artificial intelligence. Because if the naive view assumes that processing more data solves all human problems, then an entity capable of processing all the world's data at once should be our ultimate savior.
Right. But Harari's analysis warns that AI is not a savior. It is a completely unprecedented disruption. And it all hinges on the difference between a tool and an agent.
This shift is so crucial because previous tech, no matter how powerful or destructive, was just a dumb tool.
Right, a microscope reveals cellular structures, but it doesn't autonomously decide to synthesize a novel virus.
And an atomic bomb is terrifying, but it just sits completely inert in a silo until a human being turns a key and presses a button. The decision-making power, the agency, it always stayed with Homo sapiens.
But AI shatters that paradigm entirely. AI is the first technology in history that can make its own decisions and generate new ideas.
Like a gramophone plays music, but AI can compose it.
Exactly. And when you scale that autonomy up to a global network, the text outlines 2 major catastrophic scenarios. The first one is what it calls the silicon curtain.
Okay, what does that look like?
So instead of a physical iron curtain made of concrete and barbed wire, the world gets partitioned by an impenetrable wall of silicon chips and computer code. It's the logical endpoint of an AI arms race.
Where nations are integrating AI into their defense networks just to increase reaction times.
Yes. And eventually you reach this point where hypersonic weapons and cyber attacks move so incredibly fast that a human brain simply cannot process the incoming data quickly enough to authorize a response.
The human becomes a total liability in the loop.
Precisely. To defend yourself, you literally have to hand the launch codes over to an autonomous AI.
That is terrifying.
It is. Because when you have rival algorithms staring each other down, operating in milliseconds, a minor miscalculation like a radar glitch or a misunderstood line of code, it could trigger a flash crash of the global defense network.
A cataclysmic war could start and finish before a human general even realizes the first shot was fired.
The machine triggers the seizure before the brain can intervene.
Wow. And then there's the second scenario, the algorithmic overlords, which is arguably more insidious because it doesn't even require a war. It just requires us surrendering our decision-making to systems we no longer comprehend.
And we are already doing this. We're building deep learning neural networks to manage our finances, optimize power grids, screen resumes.
But they're black boxes.
Exactly. These algorithms build their own hidden layers of logic. We feed them the input, they spit out the output, but the middle of that process is totally opaque. Even the engineers who coded the initial architecture can't explain exactly how the AI weighted millions of variables to arrive at its conclusion.
I mean, think about the practical mechanism of that in your own life. Let's say an algorithm denies your mortgage application, or an AI risk assessment tool denies you parole. You ask the bank manager or the judge why, and they look at the screen and say, I don't know, the system calculated your data and determined you're a risk.
There is no human rationale to appeal to.
If the systems running our society are fundamentally unfathomable to the people living in it, are we still the ones driving the chariot? Or are we the apprentice drowning in the water?
We become the apprentice, entirely at the mercy of the brooms, and the anxiety generated by this exact realization, this feeling that unfathomable algorithms and massive institutions are stripping away our agency, it has fueled a fierce global counter-movement.
The populist backlash.
Yes! We are witnessing a populist backlash that completely rejects the naive view. It totally rejects the idea that institutions are processing information to find the truth.
And what I found so interesting here is how Harari's analysis strips away the usual political boundaries. Just to be clear for everyone listening, we're impartially reporting the source materials analysis here, not taking a side. But the text traces this common philosophical thread connecting modern right-wing populists like Donald Trump and Jair Bolsonaro to radical left-wing 20th century thinkers like Karl Marx and Michel Foucault.
The underlying premise they all share is that objective truth is an illusion.
Right. Society is nothing more than a relentless power struggle between the oppressors and the oppressed.
In that framework, information is never neutral. When a government bureaucrat publishes economic data, or a scientist releases a climate study, or a journalist reports an event, they are not acting as objective observers.
They're gatekeepers.
Exactly. The populist view argues they are weaponizing information to maintain elite privilege. Facts are just tools of control. Therefore, the only logical response is to tear down the authority of those institutions entirely.
And it's easy to see why that gains traction. When the global nervous system feels rigged against you, pointing out that the doctors are corrupt provides a really simple explanation.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, though, there's a fatal structural flaw in this populist reaction.
Which is?
If you truly believe that all institutions are inherently deceptive and merely fighting for dominance, how do you sustain the complex network required for modern survival? Like, how do you maintain an international aviation grid or manage a global pandemic?
Right, you can't. The analysis points out that the populist reaction usually splinters into two distinct solutions, and both of them completely fail at scale. The first is hyper-individualism, the pervasive mandate to just do your own research.
But modern reality is way too complex for an isolated node to comprehend the entire network.
Exactly. I mean, I can't build a laboratory in my backyard, launch a satellite, and personally verify the temperature of the oceans over the last century. I cannot do my own research on quantum mechanics or the efficacy of a new mRNA vaccine.
You'd need thousands of lifetimes.
Right. The scale of the problems we face demands massive institutional cooperation. We have to outsource our trust to specialists.
And when hyper-individualism eventually collapses under the weight of that complexity, the populist backlash swings to the second solution. To bypass those corrupt elite institutions, people place absolute, unquestioning trust in a single charismatic leader, or they retreat into rigid fundamentalist texts.
Which is a devastating paradox.
It really is. In the attempt to escape the invisible control of algorithms and flawed institutions, society dismantles the very guardrails meant to protect it, ultimately handing absolute power over to a human dictator or, eventually, to a non-human AI.
Because we destroy the institutions meant to hold them back. So we're trapped between two failing models. The tech utopian naive view trusts the information too much, assuming raw data automatically generates wisdom.
And the populist view trusts the information too little, cynically dismissing everything as a weapon of control.
So, to find any kind of functional path forward, we have to rethink the very mechanism of what information actually is.
We have to stop assuming that information is just a mirror reflecting reality.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. To show how elusive information really is, the text highlights two incredible historical anecdotes from World War I.
I love these examples.
Me too. So the first is the story of an American army pigeon named Cher. It's 1918 in the Argonne Forest. An American battalion is totally trapped behind German lines, and in the chaos, their own artillery is heavily bombarding their position.
Friendly fire. The absolute worst case scenario.
Yes. So the commander scribbles their coordinates on a tiny slip of paper, basically saying, "We are at these coordinates, our own artillery is dropping a barrage directly on us, for heaven's sake, stop it." He attaches it to Cher and releases the bird.
And the pigeon immediately flies directly into the friendly fire barrage.
Shrapnel actually hits him in the chest, blinds him in one eye, and severs his right leg. It's left hanging by a single tendon. But the bird somehow keeps flying.
It's unbelievable.
It covers 25 miles in under an hour, arrives at headquarters, and the shelling stops. The men survive.
Now, from the perspective of the American commanders, those ink smudges on the paper were life-saving information.
Of course.
But from the perspective of the pigeon, there was no information at all. The bird wasn't aware of the coordinate system or the concept of artillery. It was just an animal trying to fly back to its cage.
Right. And the text pairs this with an espionage story from the Middle Eastern theater, focusing on the NILI spy ring in Palestine. Sarah Aaronsohn ran this network, gathering intelligence on Ottoman troop movements.
And she needed a way to transmit this to British ships off the coast without arousing any suspicion.
Her method was brilliant in its simplicity. She simply opened or closed a specific wooden window shutter on her house.
Which is genius, because to an Ottoman patrol walking down the street, it was just a piece of wood on hinges. It represented nothing.
But to a British officer looking through a spyglass miles out at sea, the position of that shutter was a critical data point about troop deployments.
Exactly. And what ultimately unraveled the spy ring was a mistake involving another pigeon.
Right. A homing pigeon carrying a coded message got lost and landed at the house of an Ottoman officer. The officer had no cipher. He couldn't read a single word of the message.
But he didn't need to.
No. The mere presence of a homing pigeon in a civilian area was enough information to alter the Ottoman military's behavior. They immediately locked down the region and hunted the spies.
These stories completely strip away our assumptions. Information isn't bound to human symbols or text or objective facts. A piece of wood, a bird in the sky, a smear of ink. None of these things possess inherent meaning.
They only become information through their context.
Yes. The naive view fails because it assumes information is simply an attempt to describe the truth of the world. But a closed shutter isn't describing reality, it is establishing a connection. Information is the invisible mechanism that links disparate nodes together. It alters the state of the receiver. It is a network builder.
Which brings us to the core realization of this entire analysis. We have built the most complex, high-speed information network in the history of biology. But because we misunderstood what information was, we expected the network to automatically grant us the wisdom of gods.
And instead, we are dealing with AI agents capable of operating faster than our biology allows, and a populist panic that is systematically dismantling our institutional ability to cooperate.
So what does this all mean for you listening? To survive the 21st century, you can't just blindly trust the data, assuming an unfathomable algorithm will optimize society for human flourishing.
But you also can't survive by cynically retreating into a fragmented bubble that views all collective data as a conspiracy.
You have to understand that information is the glue that binds human networks together.
Which leaves us with a really profound, somewhat unsettling thought drawn from the very end of Harari's book.
Lay it on us.
We naturally assume that the main purpose of information is to represent reality, right? To show us the truth. But if information is primarily a network builder, we have to ask ourselves, what if the vast majority of the information holding our modern society together isn't actually trying to represent reality at all?
Wow.
If it's not trying to tell the truth, what is it doing to the network?
Keep that question at the front of your mind the next time you're staring at the endless stream of info on your own devices. Is it building a network you actually want to be a part of?
Or are we just the apprentice, watching the water rise? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, and we'll see you next time.